Apple's AI can feel slower because Apple is putting a brake pedal on purpose. That sounds like a criticism, but it is really a strategy. Apple is not trying to make the wildest chatbot. It is trying to make AI safe enough to live inside the operating system. The current AI race has two very different philosophies. One is move fast. Give the assistant more tools, more memory, more access, and let it act across your apps. The other is move carefully. Keep as much as possible on the device. Ask for confirmation, limit what leaves the phone, and only use the cloud when the task is too large. Apple is mostly choosing the second path. That is why its AI pitch keeps using words like on-device, personal context, privacy, and private cloud compute. Start with the on-device model. This is the small AI model built into supported iPhones, iPads, and Macs. It can summarize, rewrite, extract information, and help apps generate structured output. The advantage is obvious. If the model runs on your device, the request can work offline, respond without sending your personal data to a normal cloud API, and avoid per-token server costs. But the trade-off is also obvious. A phone has limited memory, limited battery, and limited cooling. The model cannot be as large as a frontier cloud model sitting in a data center. So Apple uses the on-device model for local, personal, smaller tasks. It is the fast private layer. Then comes private cloud compute. When the task is too big for the local model, Apple can route it to a server model while trying to keep the privacy promise closer to the device model. Apple says private cloud compute is designed so personal data is used only for the request, not stored afterward, and not made accessible to Apple staff. That is the key difference from a normal cloud chatbot. Apple is not saying the cloud disappears. It is saying the cloud has to behave like an extension of the device. In Apple's developer material, the local model and the private cloud compute model are now exposed through the same foundation models framework, so an app can switch between them more easily. That matters because the two models have different jobs. The on-device model is always available when supported, works offline, and has no request limit. The private cloud compute model has a larger context window, stronger reasoning, and can handle more complex work, but it needs the internet and comes with daily usage limits. So when Apple AI feels cautious, this is part of the reason. The system is constantly asking, can this stay local? Does it need the private cloud? Is the user within limits? And should the action be confirmed? Compare that with Google's direction. Google is pushing Android from a normal operating system toward what it calls an intelligent system. The promise is more agentic. Gemini can connect across services, automate tasks in selected apps, summarize information, fill forms, and eventually act more like a digital worker. That feels more ambitious because the assistant is not just answering. It is doing. It can become the front door to the phone. But the more an assistant can do, the more dangerous mistakes become. A wrong summary is annoying. A wrong purchase, message, booking, or permission change is a real problem. This is the trade-off viewers keep arguing about. Do you want the assistant that acts sooner or the assistant that asks more before it acts? Apple's bet is that trust is the product. If AI is going to read your screen, understand your messages, search your photos, and help inside apps, the privacy story cannot be bolted on later. That is why Apple keeps pulling the AI layer into the operating system instead of making it feel like a separate website. The operating system already knows what app is open, what permission was granted, what is on screen, and which data is protected. Apple wants AI to inherit those boundaries. This also explains why some features arrive slowly. Deep OS integration is harder than launching a chatbot tab. Every action has to fit permissions, privacy, local processing, server fallback, regional law, and device support. There is another hidden benefit. This strategy reduces dependence on giant AI data centers for every tiny request. If simple rewriting, summarizing, and classification happen on device, the cloud is saved for the heavy jobs. That connects directly to the bigger question of AI infrastructure costs. This is where the Apple strategy connects to the data center bubble. If every tiny AI action needs a server, the industry has to build for peak demand. More chips, more power, more cooling, and more empty capacity waiting for busy moments. But if millions of phones and laptops handle the small work themselves, the shape of demand changes. The cloud still matters, but it becomes the escalation layer, not the default layer. That does not mean data centers vanish. training new models, running huge reasoning tasks, image and video generation, enterprise workloads, and complex agents still need serious cloud hardware. The question is, what percentage of daily AI requests become local by default? Even a modest shift matters when the denominator is billions of prompts and app actions. This is why Apple's cautious approach could look boring in a demo, but powerful in the real world. A local summary in Mail or Notes is not spectacular, but multiply that by hundreds of millions of devices and the economics change. It also changes who controls the AI relationship. If the assistant lives mostly in a cloud app, the cloud company owns the habit. If the assistant is built into the phone, the device platform owns the habit. That is the deeper fight under the demos. Apple wants AI to make the iPhone more valuable. Google wants Gemini to become the layer above every app. OpenAI and others want the chatbot or agent to become the place you start. So when people say Apple is behind, the better question is, behind at what? It may be behind in viral demos, but ahead in turning AI into a control platform feature. But there is a risk for Apple. If the cautious version is too limited, people will simply use the faster assistant somewhere else. A safe assistant that cannot do the job loses to an ambitious assistant that can. Privacy is a strength only if the product is still useful. That is why the next phase matters. Developers can now build with Apple's on-device model, and Apple is opening private cloud compute for more complex app features. This means the real Apple AI story may not be one giant Siri demo. It may be hundreds of small app features that quietly become smarter. Think of a Notes app that summarizes locally, a travel app that extracts dates, a finance app that classifies receipts, or a health app that explains trends without uploading everything to a generic bot. That is less flashy than an AI agent booking your whole life. But it may be exactly how ordinary people actually use AI. Small, contextual, and built into the app they already opened. So why does Apple's AI feel slower on purpose? Because Apple is optimizing for permission before power. First, keep easy personal tasks on device. Second, send hard tasks to a privacy-shaped cloud. Third, use the operating system's existing boundaries to control what AI can see and do. The upside is trust, lower cloud dependence, and AI that feels native to the device. The downside is speed, limits, slower rollouts, and the risk that competitors look more impressive in demos. The best way to understand Apple AI is not safe versus smart. It is controlled versus open-ended. Google is trying to make the assistant more capable. Apple is trying to make the assistant more acceptable. If Apple succeeds, its AI will not feel like a chatbot you visit. It will feel like your phone quietly got better judgment. If it fails, users will keep their iPhones and outsource the hard AI work to something else. That is the real race. Not who has the loudest AI demo, but who earns enough trust to sit between you and your apps.